In 2016, Boeing's own chief technical pilot sat in a flight simulator and watched a brand new system called MCAS shove the nose of a 737 MAX toward the ground, all by itself. He typed to a colleague that the system was, in his words, running rampant. Boeing sat on that message for 3 years. In those 3 years, 2 brand new 737 MAXes fell out of the sky. 346 people never made it home. So why did the world only learn about that message after the wreckage was already being pulled from a field in Ethiopia? For decades, Boeing was the gold standard. The name on the fuselage meant safety, the name pilots trusted, the name that beat Airbus on reputation as much as engineering. When the 737 MAX rolled out in 2017, airlines lined up. It promised better fuel efficiency, faster certification, same familiar cockpit pilots already knew. Nobody outside the company knew there was a new piece of software quietly making decisions no pilot had been told about. Here's the decision made behind closed doors. To compete with Airbus without building an entirely new plane, Boeing hung bigger engines on the old 737 frame. Bigger engines changed how the plane handled in the air. So engineers built MCAS, a system that automatically pushed the nose down if it thought the plane was climbing too steeply. Boeing decided pilots didn't need to be told it existed, not in the manuals, not in training. Mark Faulkner, that same chief technical pilot, pushed the FAA in emails to keep MCAS out of the official pilot materials entirely to save airlines money on training costs. That request became policy, but that's not even the part they really didn't want out. MCAS was wired to trust a single sensor. 1. If that one angle of attack sensor failed or fed bad data, MCAS could trigger with no cross-check, no second opinion, no warning light most pilots would understand in time. Boeing knew a single point of failure like that was a risk. Internally, engineers flagged it. Externally, regulators were told the system was a minor tweak, low risk, needing no new pilot training. The FAA, largely relying on Boeing's own engineers to certify the plane under a self-regulation program, signed off. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 plunged into the Java Sea. A faulty sensor. MCAS fired again and again while the pilots fought it, and it won. 189 people died. Boeing's public response was to imply the crew was to blame. Behind the scenes, employees were messaging each other about MCAS, about that same flaw, in language that would later humiliate the company in congressional hearings. 5 months later, in March 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 went down the same way. 157 more people, same sensor, same software, same silence until governments around the world grounded the plane and forced Boeing's hand. Remember that message from 2016? The one where Faulkner said MCAS was running rampant in the simulator, that he'd basically lied to regulators without even realizing it. Investigators found it in 2019, after the second crash, sitting in Boeing's own files the entire time. It had never been handed over. It had never been mentioned. The exact warning that could have grounded the plane before a single passenger boarded had been sitting in a Boeing folder for 3 years while 246 additional people who weren't on the original body count died in the meantime. Here's the twist almost no one talks about. The people who could have stopped this didn't just look away. They were rewarded for it. Boeing's CEO at the time, Dennis Muilenburg, walked away with a retirement package worth over $60 million, even as he was pushed out. No Boeing executive went to prison. The company itself signed a deferred prosecution agreement in 2021, admitting to conspiracy to defraud the FAA, and paid $2.5 billion, most of it airline compensation and fines, a rounding error next to what the MAX had already earned the company. Mark Faulkner faced criminal charges. A jury acquitted him in 2022. The engineers who flagged the sensor risk internally were never publicly named. The FAA's self-certification program, the very system that let Boeing grade its own homework, is still in use today, only lightly reformed. So the plane that killed 346 people because of a decision to hide a known flaw from regulators and pilots never sent a single executive to prison. The families are still fighting in court over whether that 2021 agreement even counted as justice. Boeing is still building planes under the same basic certification arrangement that let this happen in the first place. And somewhere in a filing cabinet or a server nobody's opened yet, there could be another message like the one Faulkner sent in 2016, sitting quietly, waiting for the next crash to force it into the light. What would it take for it to come out before that happens instead of after?